Roll call, please.
Twenty-two supervisors are present. Supervisor Gashke is excused.
Oh, not, okay, not heard enough. Okay, also present is Erica Bando from Human Services. Citizen comments, any citizen comments? Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I'm Gail Clark Taylor. I live at 7624 18th Avenue. I'm here tonight speaking in favor of the two proposals to have committee meetings occur after 6 p.m. and for committee meetings all to be in person. I have been interested in following your doings for the last 9 months or so, and I can see some problems with earlier meetings. 4:15 meetings are a problem for people to attend, and in-person meetings are very important. I was present for a number of REEC meetings where some of the attendees were attending by phone, and it created a kind of dysfunctional proceedings there. People seem not to be on the same page, and people that were on the phone were not following protocol about taking turns and things along those lines, simply because they could not see the other members and, take body language cues and nonverbal cues. So I urge you all to vote in favor of having meetings after 6 p.m. so everyone can be attending that chooses to, and that those meetings be in person. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments? Please state your name and address.
Jody Meerhoff, 7220 First Avenue. I wrote to you all tonight to say that I too support the two resolutions that are before you to make our county government more transparent and accessible to citizens. Every Sunday night, the Kenosha News sends out its list of local government meetings for Kenosha County, and with very few exceptions, those meetings take place in the evenings. There's a good reason for that. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the vast majority of Americans still work a traditional 9-to-5 job. In Kenosha County, the highest number of people employed fall into the categories of office and administrative support and management, according to the latest U.S. Census Bureau's data. Those jobs tend to work traditional hours, meaning evenings would allow for the most number of citizens to attend. I attended the Judiciary and Law Committee meeting in January, which has moved its time to 4:15. A supervisor who was not a member of that committee was to appear that afternoon to answer questions, but she ended up being well over an hour late because of her own job. She explained when she arrived that she works until 5 p.m., so the new meeting time didn't make it possible for her to get there earlier because of her job obligations. Supervisor Rodriguez explained at the March legislative meeting that the reason for the change in time was that it seemed more convenient to some county staff and the supervisors on the committee, but I think it's important that we weigh that convenience against what's good for the people of the county to allow them to access these meetings. Fortunately, Supervisors Bashaw and Franco included an exception in their resolution, which would allow for a meeting to occur during traditional work hours if an expert was needed who couldn't be available in the evening, or there were some other unavoidable reason to schedule during working hours. One supervisor who responded to my email expressing concern about the afternoon meeting time said, "There's no perfect time for a meeting," and I agree, which is why finding a time that will allow the majority of people to attend is important. Just like the resolution on tonight's agenda requiring all standing committee meetings to meet in person allows for better, more transparent government, so does this resolution by Supervisors Bashaw and Franco, and I hope you'll vote yes on both of those. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen wish to speak? Any other citizen wish to speak? Any other citizen wish to speak? Seeing none, citizen comments are closed. I have no comments at this time, so, and supervisor reports. Any supervisors? Any supervisor wish to speak? Supervisor Carroll.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Nudo. We met the PDAC meeting we had last Wednesday. We had voted on the slate of new YIG candidates, so more to come on that through Erica Ness and into May with the new slate of candidates coming in. So they were impressed with the turnout. However, I do want to note that it was lacking some applications from the Western Kenosha County. So Erica said that she was going to try and double down her efforts next year and get some more Western Kenosha County students to join there. So other than that, we have some other items on the agenda ahead of us that for the rezoning and the comprehensive use plan that I'll talk about at those times. So.
Any other supervisors? Supervisor Bashaw.
Thank you, Chairman Nudo. The first formal meeting of the Kenosha County Broadband Committee met this week. We were fortunate to have presentations from UW Extension and from the State Office of Broadband, providing a lot of insights and information. As you would suspect, it's a cumbersome project, and it's going to take a long time to bring everything to fruition, but there are a lot of activities, a lot of ongoing opportunity, and some tremendous members representing our communities. So I'm excited about the committee, and we'll continue to update as we have more information.
Thank you. Any other supervisors? Any other supervisors? Seeing none, supervisor comments are closed.
Old business, policy resolution, second reading, 2 required. Number 5, from Vice Chair Decker and Supervisor Rodriguez and the Legislative Committee, a resolution to adopt a policy regarding in-person meeting attendance. This passed unanimously at committee.
Supervisor Thomas.
Yeah, move the resolution.
Moved by Supervisor Thomas, second by Supervisor Poole. Supervisor Thomas.
Yeah, I'll defer to Vice Chair Decker or Supervisor Rodriguez to speak on on this resolution.
Okay, which one of you wants to take it? Supervisor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we heard from some of the citizens tonight, and for those in attendance at the committee meeting, this resolution would require all standing committees and all subcommittees of the county board, including, like what we heard tonight, the Racial Equity Commission, the Board of Health, pretty much anything. We heard about the Broadband Committee tonight. None of these boards, commissions, or committees would allow their staff to appear remotely and take part in the meeting as per voting. This would allow for individuals who serve on the committees or for the public to tune in and listen over the phone and maybe even take part of the discussion, but they would not be able to vote, and their attendance over the phone would not count towards their attendance to the meeting. As we all know, the best government is held in the open. Some states call those laws sunshine laws. You can't shine sun, if you will, over Zoom or over the phone. And so while COVID puts restrictions on us in order to keep everybody, this board and our community safe, as we near the end of COVID, or what some feel is that COVID has come and gone now, we want to make sure that the sun is shining again in Kenosha County. So I ask for your support tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other supervisors? Any other supervisors? Okay, seeing none, roll call requested, yes or no?
Policy Resolution 5 passes unanimously. Ordinance, second reading to required, 16, from the Supervisors Bashaw and Franco and the Legislative Committee, an ordinance amendment of the MCKC Chapter 2.05, Sub 4, Standing Committees. This passed at committee. Supervisors Thomas, Berg, Gashke, and Uhas voting aye. Supervisors Poole, Nedwesky, and Stock voting nay.
Supervisor Thomas.
Yeah, move the resolution.
Moved by Supervisor Thomas, second by Supervisor Berg. Supervisor Thomas.
Yeah, I'll defer to Supervisor Franco or Banshaw to comment.
Okay, which one of you want to take it? Supervisor Bashaw.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Board. I wish to take a couple moments to discuss the resolution before the Board this evening, addressing the appropriate meeting times for standing committees of the County Board. Let me ask you a question to start. What does transparency mean to you? I believe it includes honesty, openness, integrity, and the ability to actively participate. This resolution presented to the Kenosha County Board relates specifically to meeting times for standing committees of the County Board. The resolution establishes that standing committee meeting times occur after 6:00 p.m. Why? Because it's critically important that the work of the County Board be transparent and conducted in a consistent and accessible manner. Unfortunately, some may feel that meeting times should be at the convenience of committee members. This, however, excludes the most important committee member, the citizens of Kenosha County. The citizens of Kenosha County are the critical stakeholder. Our citizens require unmitigated consideration, access, and transparency such that their participation is unfettered and their voice is provided its legal representation and platform. I ask that the Kenosha County Board act responsibly, transparently, and with deliberate intent to include this critical voice. Our citizens and I ask you to approve this resolution.
Thank you. Supervisor Stock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say I did vote against this during committee. I had a couple issues with the wording of it. I felt it needed some clarity. I did discuss with Supervisor Bashaw after the meeting, and I would like to make a motion to amend the ordinance that's in front of us. Rather than doing the takeouts and stuff, I'm just going to read it through. Some of the wording has been interchanged, but I'll just go ahead and read what I have here. So basically, starting in the same spot, in order to provide transparent and accessible government, regular meetings of standing committees shall not begin any earlier than 6 p.m. Standing committee meetings may occur earlier as needed with consultation and approval of the board chair when such an earlier time is necessary to facilitate business or presentations, including but not limited to instances where persons appearing before the committee are unable to attend a regularly scheduled meeting. Further, this shall not be interpreted to hinder the ability of standing committees to conduct working sessions when no votes or actions will be required.
Is there a second to the amendment?
I'll second.
Second by Supervisor Bashaw. Okay, Supervisor Stock, you want to add anything else? Or?
Yes, thank you. The reason for the changes that I'm recommending is the original amendment that's being made doesn't specifically say that board chair approval was necessary. It just said it was in consultation with. It also called out the Planning, Development, and Education Extension Committee, but I felt like it was better to clarify the language to apply to all standing committees where an earlier meeting time would be necessary. My experience with the meeting times, I agree with the spirit of the amendment in having a standardized meeting time that's accessible to everyone, but also I've been a part of several committee meetings where, you know, we start at 6 and our business is being rushed, whether we have a presentation that ran long. There's issues where starting a little bit earlier would have been more beneficial to the community, I feel, because it would have given the supervisors more time to discuss the merits of the resolutions that are in front of us, have discussion. There's been specifically the committees that I'm on, Human Services and Legislative, come right up before county board meetings. So I I appreciate, the thought of starting no earlier than 6 p.m., but there are times where it would be beneficial for us to start a little bit earlier. And I want to make sure that, us as supervisors have the time to get the work that we have done, and making it as easy as possible for the committee chairs to schedule that when necessary. If there's a presentation, if there's a meeting that needs to happen earlier, I just feel like the wording changes would make it a little bit easier for the committee chairs to be able to schedule those meetings earlier when necessary, while being transparent with the community.
Thank you. Supervisor Belsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do believe that as a county board, we need to provide transparent, accessible government, and I believe that we do that. Whether we go through tapings, we do audio, citizens have the opportunity to come up and speak, and if they can't be present, they have the opportunity to submit their concerns. I feel like this is just singled out towards the Judiciary and Law Committee. I've been on that committee for 3.5 years, and I think that the time that we currently have is very efficient and accessible. I also look at the meetings for the week, every week on Sundays, and there are meetings, whether it be Pleasant Prairie or the city, that start at 4:30. 5 o'clock. I don't think that we need a resolution that says what time we need to start our business. We are transparent, we are accessible, we are in line with the other municipalities in the county, and I think the time that we currently have fits us. The past 3.5 years that I've been on Judiciary and Law, we typically have a very short agenda. I have not seen it well attended by citizens at all. I don't know why this is an issue at this time, but I feel that Judiciary and Law is being singled out. And I want to repeat, I do feel that we are transparent and accessible through the multiple ways that I've mentioned. So I will be voting no for the amendment and for the overall resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Frango.
Through the chair, well, actually, I just want to respond. Judiciary and Law is not being singled out. It's, as far as I know, the only standing committee that has a meeting at 4:15. So, I mean, if you want to call that being singled out, I guess, but it's precisely because it meets at 4:15. All the other standing committees, if I am correct, meet at 6:30 typically. So it's not like Judiciary and Law is being picked on or anything here. The other thing too is there was a motion made, an amendment. I would like to, if Supervisor Stock could repeat it, because I failed to see clearly what the corrections were or the changes. I know he explained it, but if he could repeat it, I would appreciate it, so we could all find out exactly how the resolution is being adjusted specifically.
We have copies here. Would you like to get a copy of that?
Yeah, that would be
to
fine
look
too.
at it?
Before we vote on it,
Okay.
It's not clear to me how it's changed.
Okay.
Second sentence, instead of "this shall be interpreted as prohibiting," that's the big change right there. And taking out the PETA committee and making it.
Supervisor Frango, you want to take a couple minutes to look
Yeah,
at it, and
please.
then I'll come back to you? So
Fine.
meanwhile, maybe we can have
Thank
somebody
you.
else speak on it?
Okay.
Okay. Supervisor Poole.
That was going to be my question, if we could have a little more clarity of what was going
Okay,
on.
then I'll come
Thank
back
you.
to you after that.
mentioned. I think you should have committee chair. That's clear. You just say the chair. You're talking about chair of the board or committee chair? I'm gonna make a friendly amendment and add committee chair. Do you mind? Right at the beginning.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead, Supervisor Frank.
Yes, I'm going to make a friendly amendment. The first sentence, it says the chair. I'd like to add committee chair. Right at the beginning, the chair, the adjective committee chair. Yeah. Yeah, I just think it needs to be stated clearly because he mentions chair here. I just want to make sure, maybe it's a bit redundant, but
Yeah.
okay.
Okay,
I'm-
is it okay with, and the second, whoever was the second, I believe Supervisor Besho?
Yeah.
Okay with you? Yes, that's good. Okay. Okay, so you want to add the word chair in there? Sorry,
committee.
committee chair.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else?
No,
Okay. Supervisor Poole,
My question was answered, thank you.
okay? Supervisor Nedwesky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to the authors or to Corporation Counsel, whoever can answer the question. Further, this shall not be interpreted to hinder the ability of standing committees to conduct working sessions when no votes or action will be required. Do I interpret this correctly by saying that if I want to hold a Human Services Committee, for example, meeting on a Wednesday at 3 p.m., that no votes are on the agenda, I don't need permission from the chairman of the board?
As far as intent goes, I would defer to the author of the amendment. Beyond that, I would tell you that as written, if asked, I would probably interpret that as being permissible the way you've described it, with the amendment language.
So the intent is that if there's a meeting to be scheduled at a time before 6 p.m., on which agenda there is no vote or action being taken, it does not require consultation with or permission from the chairman of the county board.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Okay. Supervisor Uwas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to the Judiciary and Law Chairperson, can you explain when the 4:15 timeframe came to be and why?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll explain it again because I did explain it at the committee meeting. Sometime in the fall, I don't remember exactly when, I was approached from then Captain Gonzalez, or still Captain Gonzalez, of the Sheriff's Department, and he informed me that there was action that the committee needed to take on some financial issue. I believe it was a grant. And it needed to happen prior to the next county board meeting in order for timing to be appropriate, and so we didn't lose money, essentially. Let money walk out the door. And with consultation from the board chair, and the board chair currently, as did the chairman 2 county boards ago, has a precedent of things need to come before the county board and then get referred. Our most recent former chair did not have that precedent. I consulted with him if that would be permissible, and he said yes. And so we held a meeting, and when I talked with the committee members, We need to have a meeting this week. It needs to happen sooner rather than later. When is a good time? And the consensus was from everybody at the committee that they could make a 4:15 meeting on a Thursday, except for Vice Chair Decker, who at the time was in Hawaii. And we were in and out of that meeting, and a comment was made, I don't remember by who, that, man, this is a pretty convenient time. We were in and out. It worked well for staff. Staff had commented on it. I've heard from folks in the Corp Counsel's office that they also preferred it. And I went around the room and I asked Youth and Governance and the committee members, is this something we want to do moving forward? Does 4:15 work for everybody? And it was unanimous around the room. And it was at that point I told the committee members, we're not going to move this quite yet until we hear from Supervisor Decker. So at our following meeting, it was again at what was the normal time of 6 or 6:30. And when Vice Chair Decker was there, we then went around the room again. And Mr. Chairman, I would ask that side conversations stop that are happening right now on the board floor. I've been asked a question. I don't want to waste my time answering if folks aren't listening to it. Thank you. Again, I went around the committee, the Youth and Governance, and all the committee members, including Vice Chair Decker, and the staff said this works for us. It saves time on overtime for the hourly staff that was there, that was staying longer, and it prevented most of our staff, employees, Wise County government, that are on that committee. They live out on the west end. And so it worked well for everybody. We had supervisors on the committee who live on the west end. And I said, okay, well, this is what we'll do from now on if this works for everybody, 4:15. I also noted at that meeting that should there be something on the Judiciary and Law Enforcement Committee's agenda that was of great public importance, where we were hearing a lot from the community, that we knew would be a hot topic issue, that I would have no problem with adjusting the meeting to a later time to accommodate folks who may be working at 4:15. And most recently, that accommodation had been made behind the scenes when it came to the appointment of Mr. Mathewson. I worked with the staff of the committee, and not only did we move the meeting to a later time, we moved it to a larger room so that the public could participate in their county government. And then we know what happened with that appointment. Mr. Mathewson withdrew, and so the meeting never happened. But what is just, it's interesting to me that the two sponsors of this rules change voted in favor of moving it to 4:15. Had they said no for any reason that they wanted, I don't like 4:15, I can't make 4:15, just no, without explanation, we wouldn't have done it. They voted yes, that's why we did it. So I hope that answers your question, Supervisor Uhas.
Okay, anything else, Supervisor?
Yes, through the chair to the clerk. Raji, regarding overtime, when your administrative professionals are attending meetings, can you please share with the board what was implemented a couple years ago regarding your administrative professionals attending committee meetings outside of a scheduled work shift?
Right, so the committee staff, the secretaries of the committee or administrative, they get a 2-hour minimum callback. So if the meeting only goes 45 minutes, they get, and they're coming in after hours, they get a minimum of 2 hours pay. So, and it's usually taken as comp time. So it's not actually going out as overtime in most cases. So like my staff here, when we come back at 7:30, and the meeting's only a half hour, they get automatic 2-hour overtime, or 2 hours. And they can do with that, they can flex it, or they can get comp or overtime pay.
All right, thank you. And then I asked this question at the legislative committee regarding, why the 4:15 time? I work. I have to work to provide for my family. I am unable to make a 4:15 meeting time. When Supervisor Thomas proposed a meeting during the day, I voiced my concern to him about the time frame because many people do work and our schedules are not very flexible. And we were voted to represent our district and to be a voice and to have that opportunity to be at that committee. When Supervisor Nedwinski had her meeting in December during early afternoon. I voiced my concern about that as well and the issues I was having with my job. Many of us do work and don't have the flexibility to come in until after work hours, which is why I support this. I also want to let those of you that are new on this board, in 2014, Judiciary and Law met at 6:30. In 2015, they met at 6:30. In 2016, they met at 6:30. In 2017, they met at 6:30. In 2018, they met at 6 o'clock. In 2019, they met at 6:30. In 2020, they met at 6:30. And in 2021, they met at 6:30. So, staff has always been able to make these meetings. That's not an issue for me on having a 4:15 meeting. If it's convenient for the committee, when you ran for office, you knew these committees typically met at 6 o'clock or 6:30. Our county board meetings don't meet till 7:30. This government is set up different than the city or a village, and times are different. So I hope that we are taking into consideration transparency, because I know Supervisor Rodriguez has said numerous times, the public doesn't trust government officials because they think that we're hiding something. And when you have a 4:15 meeting, to me, that sounds like you're trying to do business without having it being attended by the average person with a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 5 job. So I will not be supporting Mr. Rodriguez's logic as to why this 4:15 time is good for Kenosha County and its citizens. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else? Supervisor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Supervisor Uhas is right. I have said that the public doesn't trust elected officials. And they don't trust public officials because public officials oftentimes, and I think it might have just happened just now, talk out of both sides of their mouth. So through the chair, to Supervisor Uhas, correct me if I'm wrong, you are the chair of Joint Services, is that correct? And Joint Services meets at 4:30, is that correct?
Hold on a second. I know it's my fault. I've been giving a lot of leeway to talk about the ordinance or altogether, where we should only talk about the amendment right now. So let's stick to the amendment for right now, and then we'll try to go to the full ordinance. I should have stopped before, but I figured, well, maybe we can get everything done at one time, but it seems like there is more discussion on that, so let's stick to the amendment for right now. Then we'll come back to the ordinance itself. Okay, who wants, I'm gonna clear the board, okay? And who wants to speak on the amendment? Supervisor Carroll. Since
Yes.
you did not speak before.
Yep. Thank you, Chairman Nudo. In reviewing the amendment language here, it seems to be generally, consistent with the previous language and cleared things up a little bit. But really what my question is that, what would be the process procedure for requesting the earlier meeting and approving an earlier meeting by the chairman? I'm sure that it's subjective and that it would just be worked out between the committee chair and the board chair, but just curious because, essentially the way that I read the resolution or the ordinance now would be that you still could have a standing meeting at 4:15 so long as the current board chairman and the committee chairman come to agreement on that. Is there anything precluding that you?
I'll let Joe respond to that, but personally, I don't believe that it's, and that's what he said before. Am I correct, Joe?
So really, the only thing it takes is an agreement between the board chairman and the committee chairman to have an earlier standing meeting.
Again, that certainly would be my understanding of the language as written. I think the intent would be that this would be done on an individualized or month-by-month basis. So, I mean, for example, you wouldn't, I would think it would be inconsistent with the spirit of the rule to have a committee chair consult with the board chair and say, we're going to do this every month regularly. I think the intent of the rule would be that regular meetings, quote unquote, should be starting at 6 or later, that, and, you know, on occasion, as an individual situation comes up, you know, we have this person who really needs to appear in order to speak on this point and can only be here at 3 o'clock, you know. But in terms of the bottom line question, yes, I think ultimately, under the language being proposed, the committee chair and the board chair, if they're in agreement, could set an earlier time for a meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Besha.
Thank you, Chairman. Speaking specifically to the modifications, Supervisor Stock indicated that he thought the language was a little bit overly verbose and took some of the wording out of it and narrowed it down to make it more specific. The language in this, to Supervisor Carroll's question, is not meant to be onerous. It is meant to create the spirit and the intent. If individuals, a chair of the board and a chair of a committee, chose to ovate the spirit and intent of the ordinance or the change, yes, they could do so. I don't see any reason why they couldn't, because they would be basically playing a game with the way it's written. It wasn't drafted to be onerous or to be a heavy-handed approach. It was drafted such that we recognize the need and the importance of the community to be involved in. I heard a comment earlier on a prior resolution this evening that it falls under the Sunshine Act or the Sunshine thinking. So this stays with that. The other question that I think is clarified in the language modification is, why does this require the permission of the chair? I hope we all know it's the chair's responsibility to provide oversight and appropriate order to the activities of the board. That's the chair of the board. This includes the activities and organizations of the standing committees of the board. As such, the chair is accountable for the organizational decisions of each committee. So committees shouldn't operate freestanding without consultation with the chair. That's why the chair of the board is included in that, to maintain decorum and order and keep things operating as such. So I support the amendment to, or the motion to amend the resolution as it was written. So I hope everybody here can accept that, and then we can have the next conversation and get this resolved. Thank you.
Supervisor Franco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in response to Supervisor Carroll, my understanding of this resolution is that the status quo is that you meet at 6 or 6:30, whatever. It's the burden of proof should be on the chair, in the sense that if a speaker, which doesn't happen often in committee meetings, you know, someone from the state, for instance, goes to the legislative committee and comes and makes a presentation to the committee, can't make it at 6. That would be a concrete example of why you would change it to an earlier time. But I've been on the board for several years, and I was on legislative, for instance, and had many speakers come, and, you know, interestingly enough, they all were able to make it at 6 o'clock. Never had to schedule anything earlier, even with this concrete example mentioned in the language. So basically, it's just to be flexible enough in case something along those lines happens. But most of the business that's done in a committee meeting, I don't see any reason to change it from 6 o'clock or 6:30. This is just to be flexible in case something like that happens, but it should be very rare. It's not an opportunity to run a hole through a loophole here and say, oh, we just want to do it, and we'll come up with some reason to change the time. That's not how I read it. That's certainly not my intent with the language of the resolution, just so to be clear. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Rose.
Yes, the amendment here strikes out the Planning and Development Education Extension Committee, and the regular proposal here includes it. What is the maker of this amendment's thinking on the elimination of the Planning and Development Extension Education Committee exception?
Supervisor Stark?
Yes, it was a specific call out for the PDEC working sessions, but I felt that if we're going to have this ordinance, it should also apply to any standing committees. If there's a working session, presentations that we've had so often in Human Services, I felt that it should be applicable to all the standing committees. If there's no votes going to be taken, we have a presentation, that it should be allowed to have those earlier meetings if necessary.
So all committees would meet, the general rule would be 6 p.m. or later for all standing committee regular meetings.
Yes.
I would think that we'd want to support then the amendment here proposed.
Anything else, Supervisor Rose?
No.
Thank you. Supervisor Nedwesky.
Through the chair to Supervisor Rose and the authors and also Corporation Counsel, again, you just iterated that the rule would be all standing committees meet 6 p.m. or later. But we had a clarification earlier that if it's an agenda that does not have a vote on it, it does not have to meet at 6 p.m. or earlier, which is the correct answer.
Who wants to answer that? Joe or Supervisor Stark?
In the spirit of the amendment, it's both. In the general is standing committees would meet 6 p.m. or later, but in the case of a standing committee, it would not prohibit a standing committee from holding a working session when no votes or action will be required. So if we have a committee meeting that doesn't have any votable items on the agenda, but we have a presentation, that would be allowed per
May I
this
respond?
amendment.
I think that there are so many exceptions to this rule that could take place that I'm going to have to vote no on this resolution until some of them gets cleared up. I think that there's too many opportunities where it could be misinterpreted, and the intent and the spirit that I keep hearing about in this resolution could easily be misinterpreted by future county board members. I also think that I appreciate the amendment to include all standing committees, but I think overall this needs more work. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Let's see, who is this one? Supervisor Decker.
I agree with Supervisor Nedwesky on the ambiguity of this amendment to the ordinance, but one concern I have is, why are committee meetings that don't have votes less important to the public than ones that do have votes? I was on the Planning and Development Committee for 8 years, I think, approximately, and those work sessions are very important meetings. That's where all the discussion and questions are asked and answered, the questions that the public actually a lot of times wants to know. When I know those are work sessions, so that way the public hearing can go easily, and all the questions that are asked at the work session can be, by the committee, can be, the research can be done and brought back, and the answers can be ready at the committee meeting at 7 p.m. at the public hearing. But there's a lot of important work that goes on there that the public should see. So why are we dismissing that? Supervisor Nedwesky had a Human Services meeting approximately noon. I don't believe there was any votes or votes or action taken at that committee meeting, but that was a very important meeting. I learned a lot at that meeting. Just because there was no votes doesn't mean the public wouldn't be interested in learning. Presentations are very important. I don't know why the public wouldn't want to learn that information too. I believe to say that we have to have a meeting after 6 o'clock if it has votes diminishes the whole reason for this ordinance change for the public. Committee meetings that meet before 6 o'clock with presentations and work sessions are just as important. And if we're going to say that meetings have to be open or have to be held after 6 o'clock because of the public, then I believe our work sessions should too. You can't have one say that open government's important for one meeting and then not for others. So I'd like to make a motion to refer this back to committee so that way they can work on this and improve this resolution.
We're gonna take this new motion up now, or okay, so even though there were people talking, they're gonna stop on that one, right? Okay, so the motion was made by Supervisor Decker, second by Supervisor Rodriguez, that to, what was it, to refer back to committee. Okay, any discussion or? Let me clear the board, and I think Supervisor Frango was the first one to raise his hand, and then Supervisor Nadesky. So we'll start with Supervisor Frango.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that the initial reason for putting PDEC in there is because PDEC is the only standing committee that I'm aware of that has a work session. Am I wrong about that? That's why it was in there. And those of you who haven't been on PDEC know that the work session, though is open to the public, almost no one ever comes because it's primarily a work session for the supervisors to prepare for the meeting the next day. It's really a work session for the committee. It's not meant to be at least the intent is not meant to have the public there, even though the public is welcome if they want to. So I think there's some conflation going on with the work session. We're not saying that a meeting should be held earlier based on what's the language here. We're just saying that if it's, in this case, PDEC has a specific and unique work session that other standing committees don't have. Frankly, I think that needs to be clarified here because it's being confused. I think the intent, and I don't want to speak for you, Supervisor Stock, and that is the intent is to allow for all possible standing committees if they start having work sessions, which they don't right now. Now, all of a sudden, are all standing committees going to have work sessions? I highly doubt it. So I just want to make sure that's what's being discussed here. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, let me just make, for clarification purposes, if this is referred back to committee, basically this resolution or ordinance, right? This ordinance will die.
Yeah.
So I want everybody, to make that clear, that if it's referred back to committee, it's dead. Could be reintroduced at a later date, but as of right now, it's going to be dead. Okay. Were you done, Supervisor?
I'm done,
Frank?
thank you.
Okay, hopefully I know what the heck, who is next or what. I believe Supervisor Gens.
Thank you. I won't be supporting this latest amendment. I think we're here to do the work. We should do the work. And to me, this reads, hey, the committees are 6 o'clock or later. If you have to make an exception, the chair goes to the board chair and you work that out. Now, simply, if that is abused, we can come back and adjust that further. But it's really clear to me what we're trying to do here, and I understand why people don't want to take a vote and are spinning their wheels, but honestly, we need to just move on with this, get it done. It's clear to me that the meetings should be after 6 o'clock. They've always been that way, so I will be voting no on this latest amendment. Thank you.
Supervisor Nedwesky, on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have
On the
several.
well, that's really an amendment.
The motion on the floor is to
motion.
defer.
On the referral back.
Refer back to committee.
Yeah.
So I would just like to say the motion to refer back to committee reflects exactly what happened when this item was on the agenda in the legislative committee. The legislative committee meets at 6:30. The discussion on previous agenda items was taking long. This item came up very late in the meeting, close to the time of the county board meeting. We were very rushed in the vote and discussion. There was not enough time to have a thorough and robust discussion and debate on the merits of the proposal. And it's an exact illustration of why we need to have flexibility in when we have our meeting times. Whether that needs to go through the chair or not, I don't care. But the fact of the matter is, I believe that this proposal, this new language in the ordinance needs more work and more collaboration, and that was not able to happen in the legislative committee because we had 5 minutes left before the county board meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. I believe it was Supervisor Rose next.
I'm going to speak against referral here. If we refer it back, it's dead. Sure, it can be reintroduced, but it also possibly will not be introduced. There's no obligation to reintroduce it. And perhaps one good reason that it won't come up again is because it's too complicated. One very simple way of resolving this whole thing this evening is by taking the language that you have in front of you and striking everything after 6 p.m. So it would require that all regular standing committee meetings begin no earlier than 6 p.m. They could be later than 6 p.m., but not earlier if they are a regular meeting. If we are, for example, inviting a state legislator to the committee to discuss with us the current legislative agenda, it's not a regular meeting. It can be scheduled at the convenience of that legislator, for example, if he or she is unable to make it earlier than as late as 6 p.m. That's not a regular meeting. I think that's a very simple way of solving it, yet making very clear to the public that if it's a regular meeting, 6 p.m. or later.
Thank you. Supervisor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess that still leads to confusion off of what Supervisor Rose was stating, because I've been to many committee meetings where we have a guest speaker and then we conduct our normal business. So is it not clear? But specifically on the deferral, Supervisor Nedwesky is right. This came up, and the idea was, we don't have enough time, let's kick it to the county board, we'll hash this out at the county board. And now here we are, hashing it out. We hear some of our colleagues saying, let's stop hashing it out. Let's just pass it. Let's get it done. Let's not have discussion about it. It's the exact reason why this is not a good idea. So I'll be voting for the referral.
I don't think that was ever said that we're not going to discuss it because I'm giving everybody an opportunity to speak as much as they wanted, as many times as they wanted. So just to say that we're trying to stop, it's probably kind of directed at me.
Absolutely was not directed towards you, Mr. Chairman.
Because everybody, I believe this is the fourth time that you have spoken on this year. I did not stop anybody from
This is
speaking.
the first time I've spoken on the referral.
On the referral, but
Thank
throughout
you.
this whole thing, it's the fourth time. Okay, next one will be Supervisor Bashaw.
Thank you, Chairman. Regarding the refer back to committee, that is a feint or an opportunity through maneuver to simply kill it for whatever reason, and I'll let that stand on its own. I'm against doing so. We're gathered here tonight to do the work of this committee, this board, and the committees met and did the work of the committees. It's been referred to the board, and it's our responsibility to take up the matter. Couple things that were stated, I think, are designed to muddy the water and conflate the language. This language was drafted with direct input from council. It was not done secondary or abstract in any form, and it has gone through 2 committees where it has been reviewed by 2 committees. So I find that conflation of the facts to be upsetting. I'll just say it that way. Keep in mind, this speaks specifically to standing committees of the board. Standing committees are comprised of elected officials. You, me, us, we're elected officials. Earlier tonight, we voted on a resolution specifically because, as the author said, this is about sunshine, this is about openness, this is about allowing everyone to see what we're doing. Voting should take place in the light of day with people there who are vested in it, and that's our citizens. That is why it's designed and written the way it is, to get every opportunity for our citizens to participate in our government with elected officials who are the representatives of standing committees. They are comprised of this board. I'll leave it there, Mr. Chairman, but the strategy to push it back to a committee, it die, send, die, that's purposeful. I find a lot of what's been said tonight to be less than sunshine worthy, and I'm very concerned by some of the comments of this board. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Stuck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be voting against referring it back. I do not think this amendment lacks clarity. I think it actually gives clarity to the ordinance, because the ordinance does lack a standardized time. That's why I said I appreciated the thought of having a standard meeting time put in our ordinance for future county boards, for future committee chairs to go by. And it's the amendment, clearly lays that out. If you need to meet earlier, get approval of the county board chair, and you can go on with your business. That's all this is saying. So I would vote no for deferring it. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Gersten.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the discussion I've heard tonight, I would sum up my understanding of the intent, just to get it on the record. The intent is to provide flexibility so that if there were to be a committee meeting not in compliance with this time frame, and it was the subject matter did not include any action items, you could have that meeting. So I have a question through the chair to Corp Counsel. If under this proposal, if there were an action item that was solely under the purview of a committee, and the committee held its meeting not in compliance with this, would that action item still be valid? So if they adopted, let's say Finance Committee adopted a resolution that amended the budget and that was under their purview, and they did not comply with this, would that resolution still be valid?
In my opinion, Supervisor Geertsen, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Corp Counsel. So this is designed to have flexibility so that we can meet before the time frame established here if there is not an action item. And also I did hear, I can't remember if it was the word oppressive, but the makers of the resolution did intend for this not to be oppressive, thus providing additional flexibility. So maybe it's not as rigid as the opinion I heard from Corp Counsel, if that was the intent of the makers of this resolution. And with that, I yield. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, there is nobody else that wants to speak? It looks like it, so we're gonna vote on the referral. Roll call has been requested. Yes is to refer to committee, no is to keep on talking, right?
Seven yes, 15 no, so the motion fails,
The motion fails.
right? To defer.
Yeah.
Yes, the motion to refer it back to committee fails.
Okay, so now we're going, let's clear the board here. We're going back to, let's say, the amended motion to, yeah, which one was, I think we had 2 amendments at that time, or 1, right? Supervisor, okay. Let's see, who's number 1 here now? Supervisor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to echo what Vice Chair Decker stated about planning and development. I was on that committee for 4 years, and when I was new to that committee, when I was first elected in 2018, I was told that the work gets done at the work session. And we have the work session to save time at the regular meeting. And our questions got answered, asked and answered, and then there were plenty of times where, had we not had that work session, there would have been quite lengthy discussion. As Supervisor or Vice Chair Decker had stated, the public was often very interested in these things. For those of us who represent the city of Kenosha or parts of it, we know that life for our constituents is very different than life on the west end of the county. And while it might not make much of a difference to us or our constituents, for those west enders, it's very important what happens out on their end of the county. And we would often hear sometimes from folks, well, how come you didn't ask a question about this or that? Well, we did, but it happened at the work session. You weren't there. And we want to talk about folks are working. That happens in the middle of the day. And that's what staff told us. It's what more senior members of the board and the committee told me when I was first elected. This meeting is held during the day so we can ask the questions, we can get the work done, we can get things ironed out before it goes to committee at 7 o'clock for the planning portion of that meeting. So why single that out? Further, what's to prevent committees in the future from having all of their discussion on agenda items via a work session and having another meeting at a later time and date just to have the votes? There's a lot of flaws with this. And again, these flaws were brought up at committee, they were hardly discussed, and it was pushed to the county board. Now here we are again. There's still flaws, there's still concerns. We hear from Corp Counsel that the letter of the law says this, but the spirit of the law says that. Is this an empty promise to the constituents? Is this a faux resolution here? That's all.
Thank you. Supervisor Grady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are on the amendment, is that correct?
Yes.
I would move to call the question on the amendment.
Okay. It's moved and second to call the question. Is it roll call vote?
The motion to call the question is passed. 18 yes, 4 no.
Okay. We're going to go to the original. It's in the amendment, so we're going to vote on the amendment. Okay. Could you read the amendment one more time, Reggie, please?
The committee chair shall set the time and place for all meetings of the committee, shall check and list committee meeting dates with the county clerk to avoid conflicts with other committee meetings, and shall report committee attendance to the county clerk, who shall maintain a record thereof. In order to provide transparent and accessible government, regular meetings of the standing committees shall not begin any earlier than 6 p.m. Standing committee meetings may occur earlier as needed with consultation and approval of the board chair, when such an earlier time is necessary to facilitate business or presentations, including but not limited to instances where persons appearing before the committee are unable to attend a regularly scheduled meeting. Further, this shall not be interpreted to hinder the ability of standing committees to conduct working sessions when no votes or action will be required.
Okay. Yes, if you're in favor of the amendment, no, if you're against it.
Motion to amend passes, 17 yes, 5 no.
Okay. Now we go to the main motion with the amendment. Okay. Supervisor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll pick up where I left off earlier. Through the chair to Supervisor Uhas. You are the chair of Joint Services, is that correct?
Well, all done.
It's not a standing committee, and that's what this rule change or this amendment is to standing committees, not to a committee that she's on that's not listed on as a standing committee.
Okay. Joe? Please. Okay, so the point of order is correct. It's well taken. Okay, Supervisor Rodriguez, anything else?
Yep. Okay, so I won't ask questions to my colleagues. Instead, I'll just make facts known. We heard from 2 supervisors on this county board tonight that meetings need to be held at 6 p.m. or later. We heard from one of those supervisors specifically that supervisor works until 5 o'clock and can't make any meetings prior to that. But that's just not the case, because we know that supervisor is meeting or is chairing meetings at 4:30, only 15 minutes later than Judiciary and Law. And arguably, I don't think you could find another committee that we take part in, or somebody from the county takes part in, that is closer to Judiciary and Law than Joint Services. So when we talk about folks don't trust politicians, that's why. Another example, we heard from one of the authors of this rule change, that the public wants to take part in these. The public works during the day. We got a report from that supervisor as well about the Kenosha County Broadband Advisory Committee. That supervisor represents the West End, one of the most underserved areas of the county when it comes to broadband access. I would think that folks who don't have broadband access would want to be at that committee meeting. What he didn't mention, and which to my knowledge, he didn't bring up at that committee meeting either when they first met, was any concern that they were meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's okay when it happens then. We haven't heard a cry from anybody, from citizens, about the city of Kenosha. If you look at last week's public meeting notice in the Kenosha News, we had an earliest meeting starting at 9 a.m. with one of the school boards. No concern. The city of Kenosha, their committees meet regularly before 6 o'clock, several in the 4 o'clock hour. The last county board, the Human Services meeting, had to be moved to 5:30 for their regularly scheduled meetings, because what goes on at Human Services is very dense. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot to get over. What else met prior to 6 o'clock? Redistricting, one of the hottest topic issues this county's had in a long time. Met at 5 o'clock, multiple times, knowing that this was a hot topic issue, that citizens wanted to be heard, and they did it on purpose. Now, what's the difference between that and Judiciary and Law? Well, the difference is, as chair of Judiciary and Law, I made a commitment to the committee and to the public that should there be something that the public is very interested in, we'll move the time. And I kept true to that. And at our last several committee meetings, including our most recent one, nobody showed up. Nobody gave citizens comments. So what truly is the point of this? And because I can't ask questions to my colleagues, I guess this will be a rhetorical question. Why did the two sponsors vote in favor of moving the meeting to 4:15 to then turn around and do this? I won't know that. That's okay. I'm voting no. The committees need the flexibility they've always had. The committees have never had to consult with the county board chair in the past. This was not done via, I'm the chairman and I'm doing what I want. It was, I'm the chairman, I'm asking the members of my committee, the staff of my committee, the youth and governance on my committee, does this work? And they all said yes, every single one of them. Had one person said no, it wouldn't have happened. Give the committees the flexibility that they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Grady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've had quite a bit of discourse on this particular item. A lot of comments, a lot of circular dialogue. At this point, I'll offer no opinion other than to say that move the question.
Okay, moved by Supervisor Grady, second by, I heard a few voices, Supervisor Berg. Okay. Takes a roll call vote. Yes to call the question, right?
The motion to call the question passes, 15 yes, 7 no.
Okay.
Roll call.
Okay, we're gonna vote on the motion, original motion as amended. And roll call has been requested. Yes if you approve it, no if you're against it.
Ordinance 16 passes, 14 yes.
No.
Oh. Okay, I'm reading what is on here. Okay, so ordinance 16 fails. Required a 2/3 vote?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just looking at the board and I cannot see too good, so sorry. Okay.
Supervisor Rose, what did you ask?
No. Oh.
Okay,
The number.
yeah. So there were 14 yes and 8 no. And it required 2/3.
Third. It wouldn't need,
Okay,
no, it will be 15 because it is one.
so
absent.
18. Is it 16? Okay.
A change in the rules requires 2/3 of the entire board, so it would have needed 16. Of those present, yes.
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 Move forward.
Please.
New business, resolution, one reading, resolution 97 from the Judiciary and Law Committee, a resolution to approve Mark Melitic to serve as a member of the Kenosha County Local Emergency Planning Committee, Group Number 2, Health Services. This passed unanimously at committee. Supervisors Nordigan and Wambold excused.
Supervisor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move resolution 97.
Moved by Supervisor Rodriguez, second by Supervisor Besho. Supervisor Rodriguez.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Before you, members of the board, is a resolution to approve Mark Melitic to serve as a member of the Kenosha County Local Emergency Planning Committee. He will be filling the seat vacated by Dr. John Freiheit. He will serve until the 31st day of March 2026 or until a successor is appointed by the county exec and confirmed by this county board. He could not be here tonight, but he was at the committee, passed unanimously at committee. I ask for the board's support tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Any supervisor comments? Any supervisor comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Next.
Resolution 98 from the Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee, a resolution adopting public participation procedures for amending the comprehensive plan for the County of Kenosha. This passed unanimously at committee.
Supervisor Carroll.
Move the resolution.
Moved by Supervisor Carroll, second by Supervisor, Kubicki. Supervisor Carroll.
Yes, this is procedures for amending the comprehensive plan. This is more of a procedural clarification. So these rules and procedures were being followed, but now they're memorialized as the comprehensive plan is reviewed and potentially amended through the over time by the towns and other governmental participants in it. So this is really more of just establishing the procedures based on the state statutes. So I ask for the board's support in approving these tonight.
Any comments? Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Next one.
Resolution 99 from the Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee, a resolution regarding Stephanie O. Jagger Family Asset Trust and Stephanie O. Lamping owners, Eric Christensen, agent, requesting a proposed comprehensive plan amendment from farmland protection, INRA, and non-farmed wetland to farmland protection, rural density residential, INRA, and non-farmed wetland in the town of Paris. This passed unanimously at committee.
Okay, where is Supervisor Nadleski? Moved by Supervisor Stocker, second by Supervisor. Huh?
Yep.
Are we at 99?
Yep.
Moved by Supervisor,
Yeah, move resolution 99.
okay, moved by Supervisor Carroll, second by Supervisor Bashaw. Supervisor Carroll.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Nudo. This is the first step of a three-step process for the Jaeger Lamping property. There's two. You'll see two other ordinance readings, ordinance number 17 and 18 down below. That is for the. So this is the comprehensive land plan change, which is going to then allow the comprehensive plan amendment and the rezoning further on down the line here. So this is a large property in the township. There's going to be no basically change in the use. They're rearranging the lot lines and changing how the structure of the land within the contiguous property is going to be viewed and broken up, but essentially no changes in use or in what the owners want to do with the land. So it's breaking it into a couple of parcels. So I ask for the board's support on this tonight.
Any comments? Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? So I guess now we're 100, right?
Resolution 100 from the Human Services Committee, a resolution approving the appointment of Mr. Juan Torres to serve on the Kenosha County Board of Health. This passed unanimously at committee.
Supervisor Nadleski.
Move the resolution.
Moved by Supervisor Nadleski, second by Supervisor Stoker. Supervisor Nadleski.
In the interest of time, I will keep this brief. Mr. Torres's nomination to serve was supported unanimously in committee. Please support the appointment.
Okay, any comments? Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next one.
Resolution 101 from the Finance and Administration Committee, a resolution to approve the recommendations of the classification and compensation study conducted by Carlson Dietman Consulting. Passed unanimously at committee. Supervisor Grady excused.
Supervisor Rose.
I move the resolution on behalf of the committee.
Moved by Supervisor Rose, second by Supervisor Gersten. Supervisor Rose.
The report is attached to your agenda there, quite a comprehensive report that the committee endorsed after listening to the comments and those involved. We ask your support this evening. It's rather detailed. It does reclassify people. Most people here, I think all people will get some sort of raise if they are reclassified. It is contemporary to an attempt to keep current with the job market, the shortage in many cases of people for certain jobs, to keep qualified people working for Kenosha County, recognizing that their work is going to involve a promotion, a reclassification, a recognition that they're doing a good job. So I think that's in essence what the philosophy of the report is aimed at, recognizing what the current job market is all about and what wages and salaries are across the country, and in particular this region which we are competing against. So we're asking this your support this evening. It is detailed in terms of what the job will pay and what classification it is currently in.
Any comments? Any supervisor comments? Supervisor Carroll.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Nudo. And I guess question through the chairman to the to Supervisor Rose. You made a statement that you know that most, if not all, of the folks would be reclassified and would essentially be getting some sort of a raise. There are a few in here that it looks like if that they would not be, that they would actually be getting a bit of a pay cut. And I'm wondering if the heads of the departments have weighed in on this to ensure that their people are in fact being taken care of and in the proper way. So just curious if the department heads have reviewed this and also have weighed in on their comments for their people.
Well, let me say two things about that. First of all, nobody's going to get a pay cut. People will, I mean, that's a given, and I think that was presented at the committee very effectively. And in terms of have others been brought into the process other than the Human Resources Department? Yes. And that was what the survey was all about, and a lot of time, a lot of work and a lot of time was spent there talking to various department heads and employees as to what their jobs were all about. And some of those all of the classifications are in this report. I'm not going to take the time to talk about each one of those. It's too detailed, but I think the answer to your question is, one, nobody's going to get a pay cut, and two, yes, a good many people were consulted before the report was given. That's why it took so much time.
Okay. You know, maybe this is a detail of the report, but just, you know, there's a current grade classification of NE10, and that's going to go to a new grade of NE11, which includes mechanics. And it looks like the current range is from 2939 up to 3733, and the new range is going to be 2901 up to 3693. So that to me appears to be a lower grade, even though it's a higher number. So I'm just curious if our mechanics are going to be getting a pay cut, or if they're going to remain the same, but new ones hired on are going to be at a lower rate.
Well, I'll just reiterate what I just got through saying, and that is nobody's going to get a pay cut. If Human Resources Director wants to weigh in on that and say it once again, I'd invite her to do so.
Okay. If you could, please. Just wanted to clarify that.
Certainly. No one will see a pay cut as a result of the implementation of this. That is one of very few examples where a pay grade, where a job is moving into the maximum is lowering slightly for that particular job, but no one in that role would see a pay decrease as a result.
Okay, so then they would not, okay. So the range would change, but the current people in that position would not receive a pay cut? Is that what I'm understanding?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Supervisor Kara?
That's,
Anything else?
that's my only question. I have no other.
Supervisor Rodriguez?
I didn't mean to press my button. My apologies.
Okay. Any other supervisor? Seeing none, this requires 2/3 vote. We need 15, right, Joe? 16?
Resolution 101 passes unanimously.
Next one.
Resolution 102 from the Finance and Administration Committee, a resolution 2022 to 2023 carryover and annual closeout. This passed unanimously at committee. Supervisor Grady excused.
Supervisor Rose.
Move the resolution.
Moved by Supervisor Rose, second by Supervisor Stoker. Supervisor Rose.
All right, this is a detailed resolution before you, but a routine one. At this time, every year, there are certain projects, for example, that have not been completed. And unless you're opposed to those projects now, we're asking you to endorse or continue the support of those things that you voted on in another budget, but the money would lapse to the general fund if we did not adopt this resolution. So you have basically three choices here. One, you can do nothing and the money lapses to the general fund. You can endorse the resolution and the money will continue as originally appropriated. Or three, you could take that money and develop some brand new program to replace something here that you didn't like. I would think that would be a rather complicated, difficult thing to do, kind of on the floor of the county board this evening on the fly to develop some new program that you wanted to do and abandon something else. So that's really not realistic. I think the realistic thing to do is what we've done in the past is support the resolution, carry the funds over, and proceed with it next year.
Any comments? Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Next one.
Doesn't this require 2/3, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I got the paper.
So Supervisor Stocker. Resolution 102 passes unanimously. 103 from the Judiciary and Law Enforcement and Finance and Administration Committees, a resolution to approve the appointment of Ruth Dyson to serve on the Civil Service Commission. This passed unanimously at both committees, with Supervisors Nordigan, Wambolt, and Grady excused.
Supervisor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Resolution 103.
Moved by Supervisor Rodriguez, second by Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Rodriguez.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Before you, Supervisors, is a resolution to approve the appointment of Alderwoman Ruth Dyson to the Kenosha County Civil Service Commission. She will be filling the seat vacated by Dr. Thomas Radmer, beginning upon confirmation tonight and continuing until the 31st day of December 2025, or until a successor is appointed and appointed by the county executive and approved by the Kenosha County Board. I just want to add that my supervisory district is shared by 3 aldermen, and 1 alderwoman, 2 aldermen and 1 alderwoman, Miss Dyson being the alderwoman. And I just want to add that of the 3, Mr. Kurt Wilson, Ruth Dyson, and Dave Mao, I think that I have some of the most committed alderpersons on the city council in my district, and I don't think the county exec could have picked a better person than Alderwoman Dyson to serve on this committee. She has been so active in her district and in a district, my district as well, that we share, specifically the Lincoln Park neighborhood. It's a neighborhood she's called home most of her life. I've gone to community events in the district, and she's always there. So I'm excited to see that she's before us tonight, and I ask the board's support this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Next one.
Resolution 104 from the Judiciary and Law Enforcement and Finance and Administration Committees, a resolution to approve the State of Wisconsin Department of Transportation contract with the Kenosha County Sheriff's Office for reimbursement of wages related to traffic control during the State Trunk Highway 50 reconstruction. This passed unanimously at both committees. Supervisor Nordigan, Wamble, and Grady excused.
Supervisor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move Resolution 104.
Moved by Supervisor Rodriguez, second by Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Rodriguez.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Before you, colleagues, is a resolution to accept some $16,640.80 from funds from the Wisconsin DOT. This money is going to be used to reimburse the Sheriff's Department to have a deputy out at Central School as school is starting and ending, and then as well as any big events that are going on. As Highway 50 reconstruction takes place this year, that entrance to Central High School off Highway 50 will not be accessible, and I believe, you West Enders can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's Falcon Drive is the road that they're going to be using. More of a service road for the school and for athletes. So we're going to have a deputy out there, like I said, before and after school and during events to just try to mitigate some of that traffic and get traffic moving freely. It's not anticipated that we go over that $16,000 amount, but should it, it's my understanding that the DOT is prepared to reimburse the county additionally if needed. Passed unanimously. I ask for the board's support tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a curiosity question. Are they paid on their regularly scheduled time, or is this overtime?
I guess that depends on what that deputy's hours look like that specific day or week. Specifically, though, it is the Sheriff's Department's intent that this will be the SRO that's already assigned to that school, so that I imagine if there is overtime that may come up because of this, it would cut down on that because he's already there before and after school.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is I think if there's a request for extra time beyond their regular shift, is it a 4-hour minimum that is charged for overtime?
That's a question that I don't know the answer to, and Captain Kleinheimer's not here tonight. But the county, we aren't losing any levy dollars on this. We're not expending more levy dollars than we anticipated on.
Yeah, I was just curious where the hours.
They anticipate that it's 1 hour a day before school and after school traffic control. And as I stated, that the DOT is fully committed to funding this. Should we go over the $16,600 amount, they're willing to fund it additionally. But the Sheriff's Department does not foresee that happening.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Supervisor Poole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Village of Paddock Lake had asked for a temporary stoplight at Falcon Way for Central High School. However, that was denied by the Department of Transportation, so this is the alternative. And as Supervisor Rodriguez said, this is the school resource officer, so he works that job as long as he's needed at the stoplight or where the stoplight would have been, and then he goes to the school. So if there's more time at the intersection, then it's less hours as a resource officer. So it's a wash one way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Nedweski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to note that in my other role off of the county board as state representative. I had listened to the Village of Paddock Lake trustees and tried to work with the DOT for a temporary light in that location. I am not stopping that. I will continue to do that because this is going to be a long project, but I believe that this is at least a decent compromise in the interim. So I'm glad to hear this is happening.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Next.
Ordinance, one reading, ordinance 17 from the Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee, an ordinance regarding Stephanie O. Jagger Family Asset Trust and Stephanie O. Lamping owners, Eric Christensen, agent, requesting a proposed comprehensive plan amendment from farmland protection, INRA, and non-farmed wetland to farmland protection, rural density residential, INRA, and non-farmed wetland in town of Paris. This passed unanimously at committee.
Supervisor Carroll.
Move ordinance 17.
Moved by Supervisor Carroll, second by Supervisor Franco. Supervisor Carroll.
Yes, this is the companion ordinance to the resolution that we approved previously for the comprehensive plan amendment for the town of Paris. Again, there's no planned use changes. This is moving some property lines around to accommodate some residential current use on the property and create a bigger parcel. So I ask for the board's support in the ordinance tonight.
Okay. Any comments? Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Next one.
Yes. Ordinance 18 from the Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee, an ordinance regarding Stephanie O. Jagger Family Asset Trust and Stephanie O. Lamping owners, Eric Christensen, agent, requesting a rezoning from A1 Agricultural Preservation District and C1 Lowland Resource Conservancy District to A1 Agricultural Preservation District, R1 Rural Residential District, C1 Lowland Resource Conservancy District, and PUD Planned Unit Development Overlay District in the town of Paris. This passed unanimously at committee.
Supervisor Carroll.
Move ordinance 18.
Moved by Supervisor Carroll, second by Supervisor Kubicki. Supervisor Carroll.
Just want to point out that this is the final ordinance for approval in our 2022-2023 meeting season here, so kind of honored for that one. But no, this is the rezoning for the comprehensive land use change to allow for the parcel adjustments and the carving out the 2 residential parcels on it and leaving one larger agricultural parcel. So this is cleaning up. No land use changes or any other changes that I am aware of. So I ask for the board's support on the rezone.
Any comments? Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Yes.
The approval of the April 5th, 2023 regular meetings by Supervisor Stocker.
Supervisor Stuck.
What do I do?
Approve the minutes.
I move we approve.
Moved by Supervisor Stucker, second by Supervisor O'Day. Supervisor, any? All in favor? Aye. Oppose? Motion by Supervisor Decker, second by Supervisor Berg. All in favor? Aye. Oppose? We're adjourned. We're gonna take about